Welcome to the Business of Story, where we connect you with the leading minds in the art of business storytelling. Learn from best-selling authors, Hollywood screenwriters, makers, content marketers, and brand raconteurs on how to craft and tell compelling stories that sell. The Business of Story is brought to you by Emma, which provides innovative email marketing tools and services that drive brilliant results. And by Convince and Convert, digital marketing advisors and counselors to leading brands and organizations worldwide. Convince and Convert helps you gain and keep your customers online. Here's your host, Park Howell.
Welcome to Business of Story. Great to have you back here. We're still early in 2017, and I hope your year is already off to an amazing start. This time last year, I took a big gulp and I shuttered something I had been doing for 20 years, and that was my ad agency. I've been in the advertising marketing world for over 3 decades and ran Park & Co. For 20 of those years, and I was just tired of being in the ad world as an agency, and I was just completely loving my work in business storytelling, where it has led me around the world and working with leaders and communicators to really help them understand how to use story and how to use the systematized story cycle process to truly find the human element of their brand, of your brand, and to really be able to rise above the techno-driven noise of the always-on interwebs with truly the ancient and proven power of telling a great story. So this time last year, I got to tell you, I was rather trepidatious going into 2016 because I turned away from the world I knew how to make money at, and that's the ad agency business world, in hopes of finding something bigger, grander, greater, not just on making money, but on helping people. Because if I've learned anything in all these years in this world, it is, in this business that is, it is that when you go out of your way to help your customers and your clients and your listeners get what they want, then they will go out of their way to help you get what you want. You don't even have to think about the money. The money seems to find you just by doing right by people. So that's what I've been doing for the past year. And I got to tell you, 2016 ended up pretty solid, all in all. I've got a number of great clients. This particular podcast is growing. It's something I'm extraordinarily proud of. We're up to 150,000 plus downloads on it and growing. And by the way, if you're one of those avid listeners, please visit me on iTunes and leave a comment, leave a rating. Let your world know what you think of Business of Story. But the reason why I want to bring all this up is today's guest, a really interesting guy who I was introduced to through one of my earlier shows, a show with Pam Slim. A lot of you know Pamela Slim out there. She's an amazing entrepreneur that helps people around the world, and she started her new initiative out in the city of Mesa earlier this year. Anyways, her show from last June was so moving that Julian Mather, a gentleman my same age, 55, from Australia. I've had so many Australians on the show as of late. It's great. There's just a real story thing happening down there. Anyways, he reached out to me and he said that show with Pam was so moving that he is doing some new things now. And I had to get him on the show because you are going to find this gentleman fascinating. And in fact, this is a little bit different format of a show today. It's kind of two-headed. In the first part of the show, you're going to learn about Julian and his really interesting background, going from being an Army sniper, then moving on into decades of work at shooting film and video for such organizations as National Geographic and the BBC, moving then from behind the camera to get in front of the camera and working with kids and helping them in schools through magic, of all things. And he's created a new program now for folks just like me, and maybe just like you, if you are in your late 40s and moving on and thinking about doing something different, that next chapter in your life, and don't maybe quite have the guts to jump out there and do it. Well, he's got a whole new program now that will help you do that. As he says, this world doesn't need more information. It needs more wisdom. And guess what? For all of us out there that have been doing this for quite some time, like decades, we have lots of wisdom. We know what works, and we especially know what doesn't work. And so he's going to talk about how you can bring your unique talents to the world to help everybody with their stories. Now, that's kind of part one of today's show. Part two is Julian is going to bring his expertise as a cinematographer shooting around the world in all kinds of elements to teach us of how we can use it to capture our stories in 2017 on video from something as simple as our iPhones, and using this new, as he calls it, voice, this new language of communication of video, and how we can all easily become our own broadcasters, using, of course, Facebook Live and other things, but he's going to show us some really simple ways to capture our stories on video so we look fantastic. Anyways, let's jump into today's show because there's so much to offer. Again, we've got this two-headed, and I'm not going to say monster because it is so much fun. So stay tuned, and let's kick it off with our good friend, Julian Mather. Hey, Julian, welcome to the show.
G'day, Park, down here from Australia.
Well, you gotta clue me in here because ever since I've started this business of story thing, I have had more people from Australia reaching out. I've had several of you all out, you folks from down under on the show, and Melbourne in particular seems to be just ripe with story artists and business storytelling. So, what are you guys doing down there that story just seems to be all the rage?
Look, I'm not sure, but, we're this small island that floats down in, the Pacific Ocean, down in the southern half of the world. We feel disconnected with from the rest of the world. And I think we just sort of get on and be resourceful and make up our own ways of doing things.
Well, Julian, I would just love for you to share your backstory with our audience. You and I had a chance to chat last week, and I was sort of amazed that you've gone from Army sniper to helping kids programs to videography to now a really incredible program that you're helping the 40, 50, 60 plus year old executives out there find their personal brand to live into a new chapter in their life. So how in the world, a very eclectic life, take us from the beginning. Give us your backstory to where you find yourself here today.
Okay, strap in, put the seatbelt on because here we go. All right, so for me, it all started at school, and I did really well at school if you don't count learning. I mean, I did so poorly, I had to repeat my final year at high school, and I was doing worse in my repeat year, so I became a chronic truant, and I self-educated myself at the state library because I knew what I wanted to do. I studied photojournalism by myself, and this was months and months of poring over photo books. And I learned to read between the lines because that's where you find the true secrets. And I realized I needed to have a camera in my hand at all times, and I needed to be where the action was. And that was not in my hometown of Brisbane. So I saw an army recruiting poster, and I went in and asked, could I be a photographer in the army? And they said, certainly, sir, sign here. But to my naive surprise, that's when the yelling started. And it didn't stop. And they put me in the infantry. I'd been duped. So I looked for a job in the army where I could get some peace and quiet away from all the yelling. And I found one. I became a sniper. And my job description read, must have a personality which allows him to kill calmly and deliberately. And honestly, my heart wasn't really in that. And that part of me that's designed to kill people, it's not very big, Park. I mean, you could stick it in a matchbox and still have room for the matches. So there I was, lying in wait, looking through my crosshairs, but still dreaming of photojournalism, which, really is just simply telling a story with pictures. And I realized that looking through my telescopic sight was like looking through a camera. So I started a process of making these imaginary movies. And essentially what I was doing was self-educating myself in filmmaking. So I went from being trained to shoot people with a rifle to shooting people with a camera. Much more socially acceptable, I got to tell you. And then I joined ABC TV, which is not the ABC in the USA. It's a government-funded network in Australia that specialises in factual storytelling. Documentaries. And so they said, go document people's lives. Yay, I'd finally made it. So for over 2 decades, they put a plane ticket in one hand, money in the other, and kicked me out the door. So I had a great time of traveling the world, getting a ringside view of life. And after 20 years, I'd met so many VIPs, that's very inspiring people, and they were out there making a difference. And I deep down wanted to do that too. And even though I was doing little projects here and there, nothing gained traction. And I started to think it was just me, that I wasn't good enough to do the things that all these other people seemed to be able to do. And then one day I had the simplest of realizations. I realized that all the people making a difference were in front of the camera. And that's where I needed to be. But I was behind the camera. And the only way to be in front of the camera was to leave behind the camera. I couldn't be in two places at once. So I left. And I cried. I actually mourned. I mean, leaving 25 years of everything I'd worked so hard for. I mean, it was the very fabric of who I was. But that morning, that was the best thing, because it's incredibly important to be able to let go, because it's only when you let go that you can start the fresh chapter in your life. Now, I've got to tell you, I had three other passions apart from photojournalism and my family. It's magic, juggling, and teaching philanthropy to children. And in my mind, this was how I was going to make my difference. So I planned on going into primary schools, working with 10-year-old kids, teaching in simple terms that philanthropy is smarter than charity, teaching a new generation that prevention was better than cure. In a sense, teaching a whole new generation a whole new mindset. I know it was ambitious, but I pre-tested it, and the government liked it, the parents liked it, the schools liked it. So I launched this program to deafening silence. Schools would not book me. But I said to them, you said you liked the program. They said, well, we do like the program, but we didn't say we needed it. What we need is maths and science and literacy. Got any programs on those? And I learnt my first marketing lesson: never open a restaurant unless you've got a starving crowd. So there I was, my TV career sailing off into the sunset, and with what was essentially a magic and juggling show with no audience. So through necessity, I reinvented myself as a children's and family entertainer. And the more and more I got deeper into the world of magic, the more and more I realized that there were some long-held beliefs that I didn't subscribe to in the world of magic. And these were focused around the 3-act storytelling structure I had learned in factual TV. So now, as a 48-year-old outsider to the world of magic, I started sticking my head up and making my opinions heard. Behold the turtle, he never moves forward unless he sticks his neck out. So one of the ways I did this was by going onto YouTube and making videos that elevated the story and presentation of magic above the technical how-to side of doing the tricks. And this was called Julian's Magician School, and this got traction. And it now has about 140,000 subscribers and 30 million views. And I never expected that sort of interest, and I never expected it would make a difference. But here's the thing.
Let me get this straight. So you leave, you've got this great cameraman career, you're doing that. You leave it after 25 years. You go and you follow your passion for magic, and you want to work with kids. So you put together this whole program, you take it in, everybody loves it. They say, I love it, but we don't really need it. So thank you, but no thank you. So still following your passion, you decided to start using your storytelling technique and craft to teach people how to do magic online. And then this sort of miraculously took off for you. Do I have that right?
Yes. Yep. That's it. So what happened was that even though I was doing these tricks for kids, a third of my audience was adults. And I started getting emails. Mm-hmm. And I'll read one verbatim. It says, Julian's magic tutorial saved my life. A few months ago, I was on the brink of suicide. And I went, huh? Me? This is not what I set out to do. And then because I started getting connections from this. And then I was contacted by a guy in the UK, and we started a dialogue, and we soon realized that we had complementary strengths. And it's like that story where someone has a half of a mysterious broken pendant, and they search the world for the person with the other half. And when these two halves come together, kazam! And that was us. We really worked well together, and we formed a company, and we now run the world's #1 online training academy for children's entertainers, and it's called Kids Entertainer Academy. And that's running nicely, which is the signal for me to self-destruct and reinvent myself again. It's a pattern I follow.
Let me ask you real quick, though. I want to go back to this concept of you used this 3-act story structure in your videos, because so many of us have videos online and we're trying to constantly get more, viewers. Tell us, what is there a simple approach to this 3 acts that you take when you are putting something up on YouTube?
Oh, look, it's just classic. I mean, I use nothing special, but it's it's an introduction, introduce the characters, create a small amount of conflict, and then resolve the conflict. I mean, the old story of there's a cat, the cat goes up the tree, someone starts throwing stones at the cat, the fireman comes along and gets the cat down, and it's a happy ending. I mean, I don't use anything special, but this was just the 3-act story structure was what we used in television a lot. I worked on a program called Australian Story, which is a long-form documentary program. Runs for 30 minutes now. It actually used to run for 60 minutes, but everything's compressing in time. And that was just that's how we worked. We worked in 3 acts, and it was all scripted. And even though it was real, it was documentary TV. So a lot of thing a lot of people don't understand is that documentaries, everything is scripted out on paper. For a visual-led medium, everything is written on paper first.
Well, you have to, because you have to get that structure down, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so you know what to go and shoot and what to show. Now, how do you use 3 acts in your magic? Do you consciously think of that when you're going in to do a trick? Do you set up a problem, create conflict, and then you have this voila resolution?
Not so much in that introduction, conflict and resolution, but certainly you use the 3-act structure, or I use the 3-act structure in setting up a show, because it's very much like each of the 3 acts has a different focus and each of the 3 acts has a different pace. And when act 1, it goes for about 12 minutes. It's my opener, and it has a whole lot of routines in there, but those routines are all structured to train the audience how to behave during a show. Because here's this weird thing. We live in this modern world where a lot of kids don't get to experience live theatre. They sit in front of a TV, which is non-interactive, and you actually have to train them how to act during a show. So once they've been trained, then you go into act 2, and this is where it's all about the audience. This is where you get 5 audience volunteers up over a number of tricks, and it's all about them and their longer stories, and you settle into a different pace. But then you've got to come to the end of the show, and you've got to send people back into the real world, because this is the land of make-believe here, and you can't just cut it off. You have to gradually let them get back into real life. So that has a different pace and flow to it as well, and that's how I use the 3-act structure.
And, we find this 3-act structure everywhere. And you, of course, use it in the professional realm as a cameraman and capturing, doing documentary work. You use it in professional entertainment realm as a magician. You teach this. How come it just seems to be everywhere? How come more people in your mind's eye don't use this to truly connect with audiences and move them to action, this 3-act structure?
Because I simply think they don't know it. I mean, unless you're taught it. And, maybe we were taught it at school, but I don't know how much you remember from school, Park, but I don't remember a whole heap. Because there was no application. I'm certainly a person, I need application. I need to see how I'm going to use something before I'll ever commit it to memory. And I just think people don't understand. But when you do teach people this, I love your podcast. I really do.
No, thank you.
And one of the things I learned is this ABT, this and, button, therefore structure, which is just another iteration, I guess, of the 3-act structure. I'm in a Toastmasters group, and I've shared this ABT with them as a way of being able to deal with impromptu speaking, because you get up there and your mind goes blank, but it's a 3-act structure. And again, a lot of these, they hadn't heard of the 3-act structure, but now they're getting an introduction to it, and they've got an application for it, and they're using it. So I just think it's, maybe, Park, because this is your world that you live in, maybe you think that a lot of people, that we all know this, but no, we don't.
And you're right. And to be clear, the and button, therefore, is created, revealed by Dr. Randy Olson, and he's got a wonderful book out called Houston, We Have a Narrative. Randy's been on the show a couple times, and we did a really fun show with him the day after the election, and he showed how Donald Trump has this narrative intuition that is so far above and beyond Hillary that she didn't stand a chance just because he was such a great storyteller, probably, from his years of being on The Apprentice, a reality TV show, truly the first P.T. Barnum we've elected in my lifetime to the White House. But that's what you're talking about, this ABT, this setup and problem, with the big but, and then therefore the resolution. And our reptilian brains just love this stuff.
And can I just recommend to any new listeners who have not listened to that episode to go back and listen to that, because that is marked down as one of my must-listen to episodes, not just on your podcast, but on many podcasts. It is so freaking interesting, that whole episode.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, Randy does a great job with that. But I love seeing it in all different forms. And you talked about using it in big show form, when you're putting together the overall show arc, story arc for your magic shows. But it also happens in our lives, doesn't it? I mean, you had an arc as a cameraman. You came in then as a story arc, as a magician, first both trying to incorporate it into school, training of kids, and now online. And then you said that, all right, you've got that all going pretty well. It's time to blow it up, and it's time to start a new story. So what do you have going now?
What I'm passionate about now is working with 40 to 60-year-olds. So I'm 55, yet I wake up in every morning, Park, thinking, wow, I mean, what opportunities are there today? I just see opportunities everywhere. Yet I came across this statistic. If you are white, if you are male, if you are 45 to 65 years old in the West, then you are most likely to suicide. And it literally stopped me in my tracks, because I thought, that's me. That's my friends. But I don't feel that way.
And why is that? What are compelling
know.
folks to do that?
This is my little quest that I'm on. I just know that I don't feel that way. So what do I know that may help somebody else get over the line, deal with a difficult situation? Because I'm immersed in this online world now, and honestly, I just see so much potential. But again, it's like we're talking about the 3-act story structure. A lot of people don't know it. So all these things that maybe I take for granted, that I'm using these tools and opportunities I see, I'm getting this out in front of people. And I've got a thing called Tailor Made Career, which is a new project I'm working on, because that's what I've got. I now make my own career, because I'm at a stage in my life where I have some resources, and I've got some finances that I can fall back on. I don't need to work, full on, flat out. And I've got this wealth of knowledge in my head, and I'm able to mix and match things. So, with our house here, we've got, our kids have moved on, so we rent out a room on Airbnb now. That's the digital world, using that in the real world. And then I come down and I sit here and I work on developing training programs and selling those online. And all I'm doing is selling my knowledge online. And I'm into podcasting and all these things. And I just go, well, these are wonderful tools, but so many people don't know they're out there. And that's my job, is just to really go stand out in the madding crowd there and stand on a stool and start yelling about this.
And you came to us through our good friend Pam Slim. You heard her show. You told me we had her on Business of Story back in June. And there's something about her show. Tell us about how you and Pam got connected and how that has helped lead into your new venture. And let's go a little bit more in depth into what is Tailor Made Career.
Okay, when I was listening to Pam on your podcast, this is the power of podcasting, is that we can have a long conversation like this, and you just get the sense of whether you can connect with a person. And you were talking to Pam about a whole range of things, and I was just listening. I went, oh, I could talk to this woman, And so at the end of the podcast, Pam was saying that she, did coaching and worked with people. So I just connected with Pam, and we had about a half-hour chat, and we found there was a connection there. And some of the problems I was having, some of the roadblocks in getting this Tailor Made Career out, she said she could help me with. And so we started a working relationship, and which is sort of, nicely gone now beyond that. And, we stay connected.
So take us through this new venture then, Tailor Made Career, and you can go to, as you're listening to this, if you're in front of a screen, tailormadecareer.com. Is that you on the front page with your thumb?
No, that's not. You'll find there's a podcast. There's a podcast page. You'll see a picture of me, but I do have a beard now. That's certainly true.
Yeah. But essentially, you're helping professionals or even non-professionals, folks 40, 50 plus, find this new chapter in their life, this new career that they can use the online world to help spread their influence and their expertise. I mean, there's a big difference between someone who's 55, me included, and someone who's 25 that are both online, because we have 30 years of bumps and bruises and scrapes that we can share with the world.
Yeah, definitely. And this is what a lot of people don't understand. I mean, part of this came from what I do in any new thing I do, and any new career invention, is I immerse myself in things. And now I've been immersing myself via podcasts. And then when I say thousands, I've literally listened to thousands of podcasts. And again, you learn the secrets are all written between the lines. And one of the things I got from listening to podcasts is that a lot of this online world has been driven by people, in their 30s, and great information and all power to them, but they're speaking in a voice that doesn't speak to me. And I sort of figure, well, how many other people are being put off by this? Because even though they're creating these new platforms out there and they're driving the world in a new direction, I feel that a lot of people 40 to 60 are being excluded from this because, they're excluded in the real world with, there's a lot of workforce change going on. There's a lot of people, the rug's been pulled out from under their feet. But they've just got this depth of knowledge and life experience, and online is overwhelmed with information. We do not need any more information. But I tell you what, we could use a whole lot of wisdom to try and sort this information. And this is where I think people 40 to 60 can come in. They've lived lives that are rich in knowledge and stories. And, and here we are talking about story again. Boy, if there's one thing that 40 to 60-year-olds got over a 30-year-old, is stories. So I'm out there just telling people, you've got this information in your head, but you probably don't know that you've got it. So the first thing I do is if you go on to Tailor Made Career, you'll just see a little, a guide that you can get. And it's just got these prompt questions, and go through these prompts. And on a topic, it could be anything. It could be training dogs. It doesn't have to be professional. It could be a hobby. It's just a passion of yours. And go through the prompts, simple things. What do you need to start? Are there tools you need to get to begin? Where do you go to get these? Which of these are worth getting? Which ones should you avoid? What's the next steps you need to take? Who should you listen to? Who are the well-known people in the field that you follow? And you'll start to find you've got a ton of information. And here we are. All this technology is now so easy to access to create training materials. You can sell your knowledge online, and believe it or not, there are people out there who are willing to pay for this. But again, a lot of people don't know this is available. So this is my mission, is to put this in front of 40 to 60-year-olds and say, hey, this is available and you can use this. And this technology like we're using here now with the podcast, this technology has been hijacked by the marketing industry. This is in my view anyway. And this technology can be used for social good, but a lot of people aren't using it, because if you go and get any how to podcast course. You'll sign up, and the first thing you'll get is marketing and stuff that you need to now get onto webinars as well. And it's so confusing. So I've created this how to podcast course for 40 to 60-year-olds. And I've taken away all the mumbo jumbo, taken away all the academic jargon, and put it into a form that people can get a podcast up quickly. But hey, Park, here's how they can use it. Even if you don't have an idea, you've probably got a family. And what's one thing we all say? All our family stories are just disappearing into the ether. We should have interviewed Uncle Bob and Auntie Jane. Now you can start up a family podcast. You can use your smartphone and just start recording the stories on there, upload them, and make it a central point for your family to come back to. And you have now got the tools and the knowledge to take yourself into this new digital world that we're living in. And I'll share with you at the end that I've got a free 12-part course. It's wonderful. It just explains exactly how you can set up a podcast for yourself.
Oh, that's great. And coming off of your broadcast background, I mean, you've got a lot of terrific insight into it. I want to take a break now, but when we come back, you are going to share with us, again, from your camera man perspective, of how we can use that wonderful little iPhone or Android, whatever that device that we are making phone calls on and has a video recorder on it, how we can use that to start capturing ourselves both in recorded and in live video online. So you don't have to go out. You don't have to buy a whole bunch of stuff. You've got some tips and techniques for us on how to tell our stories just using our iPhones, our PDAs, if you will. So let's cover that, Julian, after we cover these stories from our wonderful sponsors. Hey, if you like what you're hearing here on Business of Story, then you are going to love Definitive, the email from Convince and Convert that many marketers say is the most useful resource around. Each day, the team at Convince and Convert picks a topic and sends you the 3 best resources ever created about that topic. It's topical, it's timely, it's useful, so go to definitivedigest.com and subscribe for free right now. Hey, I've got a question for you. What's the best call to action button color on your website? Yeah, you probably didn't see that one coming, did you? Well, what's the best shape and sizes of your CTA buttons? And what copy gets more clicks? You know, these questions have interrupted my sleep patterns for weeks now, until I downloaded a helpful new email marketing guide from Emma called Why We Click: The Psychology Behind a Great Call to Action. You'll learn how applying just a little bit of brain science can transform your CTA buttons into small but mighty conversion powerhouses. It covers the button color, copy, and placement that helps skyrocket click rates. Check it out at myemma.com/click. You know, Emma helps marketers everywhere send smart, stylish email newsletters, promotions, and automated campaigns, and to help us all rest a little easier knowing our email marketing is doing its job. So check out their new publication at myemma.com/click. You, like all business leaders and communicators, have an important brand story to tell, but it's probably not being heard. There's just too much competition for our attention, unless, of course, you tell a better story. For over a year now, I have connected you with more than 50 international story artists through this podcast to help you craft your ideal brand story for the growth of your enterprise and your people. Did you know I'm also available to you for speaking engagements, brand and leadership story workshops, even for one-on-one Skype or telephone brand story strategy consults? Plus, you can begin clarifying your brand story right now by downloading the interactive DIY workbook at businessofstory.com. You see, your sales don't have to be comedies or tragedies. You can make them epic by clarifying your brand story and connecting with audiences and customers like never before. So download your workbook today at businessofstory.com. And if you're not 100% satisfied, I'll happily refund your money. And one last thought. Just remember, the most potent story you ever tell is the story you tell yourself. So make it a good one, my friends. Story on. Hey, welcome back to Business of Story. Our guest today, Julian Mather from Down Under. Now, as an American, I would call it Brisbane, but it's not, right? It's Brisbane.
Brisbane, you got it.
Brisbane. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Now share with us those tips, the video tips that we can use by simply, when I pull my iPhone out, I can prop it up because I'm going to start doing some Facebook live shows beginning in January every week on Fridays, 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, and I've got to get up and running and get comfortable with this. And you're telling me I can just simply use my iPhone to do this. Take us through it.
Okay, I've got to tell you a brutal truth first before we get there. And it's going to fly in the face of most of the how-to video courses out there because, I mean, they've got businesses to run and they want you to spend on gadgets and gears because they've got affiliate deals and stuff they've got to do. A lot of the information you get is bad information. You don't need anything more to get started than your smartphone. And before I just go, why should you listen to me? Because I've lived and breathed and bled this stuff, Park. I mean, I've done this for ABC TV, BBC, National Geographic, Discovery. I got these awards. I know online too. And I've created over 1,000 videos online. Some of those have been on the camera, on a smartphone. So spend 20% of your time on the video aspects and 80% of the time on the words you say. And this is, you won't get that information elsewhere. It's so important. And if you are wanting to get out there and get into the world of film and TV and video and YouTube, spend 30% of your time on technique and technology, 30% on your attitude, how you approach it, 30% on your interpersonal skills, and then allow 10% for luck. And that'll just about get you there. So the phone that you've got in your pocket is just amazing. Hey, I'm going to divert just for a moment here and just go back to this idea of understanding the story part of it and that 80% on focusing on your words first, because it's going to make the process of shooting video so much easier. You know, when I started in TV, we used to have a 400-foot roll of film in the camera, and that was 10 minutes. And when you go back into the newsroom, when you're a young journo, they'd spool through to the 200-foot mark and actually physically snap the film in half and give you the first half of that film, 5 minutes worth, and say, cut your story from this. And you had to learn how to put the story together, story structure. It was so important because what that did was it speeded up the process. And this, you know, if you're running a business online, you don't want to spend a lot of time on this video because it'll suck a lot of time out of it. So work on your words and understanding the story structure first. So you don't need a fancy schmancy camera. You can just use your smartphone. So don't get mired in this technology mirage because it is only a deception. It really is.
How about audio? It's hard to get audio, good clean audio if your smartphone is sitting away from you just a little bit.
Okay. Do a test. If you get your smartphone and put it on a stack of books in front of your mouth and put your mouth just about 4 or 5 inches away from it, just use the recorder on there and hit the record button and do a little test and listen back through a set of headphones. You're going to hear that audio, that microphone is actually pretty darn good. The reason it sounds awful is most people hold the camera in their hand. So to get clean audio, whether it's from your laptop, whether it's from your smartphone, or whether it's from your tablet, the simplest thing you can do is get a towel, fold the towel up, so it's about the size of the device, so a couple of layers, and put it down on that, because here's a camera and a phone and a tablet and a laptop, they're what's called live. If you hold the body, the microphone is actually attached to the body of the device you're holding. And so all that live noise of your hands, even just little electrical contacts, can affect the audio. So you can improve your audio immensely just by getting the device out of your hands.
So what's the next tip then?
Okay, next tip. Right. Remember that it's motion picture, not moving camera. So lock your camera off. These people get, and they're zooming here, zooming there. Lock your shot off. Put it at eye level. So if you do a Skype with someone, or you say, I'm going to record a video, what you do is you put your laptop down on your desk. And so the camera is actually lower and looking back up at you, and you're looking up at, you're looking at people's noses. It's just a horrible angle. All you got to do is get a couple of books, stack it up a bit, and get the actual camera at eye level. And then these smartphones work really well, but they work better when you get a lot of light coming into them. So put some extra light onto your face. Where does that light come from? It comes from directly over the top of the camera lens. So if you put your smartphone on a little stack of books and you've got it propped up there, have a look where the camera is and just get a desk lamp and put the desk lamp directly over the top of the camera so it shines back in your face. And you'll see, and you can, just hit the reverse button on the image so you can see yourself, and you'll see immediately that you'll light up. It's called, and for women, fantastic. It's a beauty light. Beauty light sits normally about 4 inches above the camera lens, just comes over the top, smooth out all those wrinkles. Next thing you want to do with your camera is you want to clear up some memory on there, because video chews up a bit of memory on there. So if you've got a gazillion photos and stuff on there, you probably want to dump those off first onto your hard drive on your computers, clean up that space. And it gets overlooked so often. Switch it to airplane mode, because if you don't, you'll be in the middle of shooting a video and your phone will ring, and it's about the worst time. Is when, Yep. So it's pretty obvious, but a lot of people just don't get that one. Then when you're recording, and leave silence before you start, and leave silence after you finish. And you're just going to find that having that silence is going to help your editing process a whole heap. So there's some immediate tips. Now, one way that you can use your smartphone to help your business is to get video testimonials from your clients.
Okay, so we've got all that down. Should I be holding my camera or locking my camera down in landscape mode, meaning sideways? Because you still see so much video shot vertically, as if someone is on their phone looking at it.
Yeah, definitely. Put it in landscape mode sideways. Just out of habit, because we hold our phones vertically, and you can shoot the video vertically, but when you put that into a widescreen format, which is what video is shown, it's the top and bottom are longer than the short side of the frames. Your video will come up smaller, and it will come up with these 2 big black bars on the side. So definitely, turn your camera onto landscape. And in I've got some free videos which I'll direct people to. I'll show you a great little hack in there. If you don't have a way to keep your camera vertical and steady, I'll show you a great little trick you can use with 2 fold back clips, like big paper clips, those big ones, and put on hold a wad of paper together and use 2 of those and a piece of cardboard, and you can make yourself a great little smartphone tripod.
That's great. I mean, you have all kinds of MacGyver ways of working around this, and we can do it all just from that beautiful little phone in our pocket.
Yep, definitely. So do you want to go in and talk about getting some video testimonials from clients?
Yes. Why don't we dive into that? What's the best way? What do you recommend?
Okay. Number one is that if people have got something really good to say, make sure that you record it and you can see it. And so the number one tip I'll give you on this is just have a look at the background first, because if you put people against a bright window, generally you'll see that their face will go dark. And again, I'll explain this into some free videos I'll give you. It'll make a lot of sense. But number one, get them away from windows, because if they say something really good about your business, it's going to be a real shame if you can't hear it. If you can't see it and you can't use that video. And then this is the biggest problem, is getting people to say what you want them to say. And generally, this is because you ask them the wrong question. So I'll use an example of getting testimonials for when I was doing the magic shows. So if you said to someone, what was your favorite part of the show? they'd go, oh, the trick at the start, because that's not an open-ended question. It's a closed question. So a better way to ask them would be, what was your favorite part of the show and why? And then they could expand a little bit more. But the best way to ask them is to say, what's your name? Say, what's your name, what your favorite part was, and why I liked it. So they say, my name's Julian Mather. My favorite part of the show was that routine at the start, which had all the kids laughing, and why I liked it, because I'm a school teacher, and, getting kids under control is, one of the hardest parts of my job. And having Julian at the school was fantastic. So frame your question in, my name is, my favorite part was, and why I like it was. And if you do that, you'll get video testimonials that you can actually use on your site and, really benefit your business.
So that's great. If you go back through this very quickly, you're shooting this, and the reason why you don't want to shoot people in front of windows is it's typically much brighter out behind them than it is in the room. So the iris, the lens on your camera, is going to adjust down for that brightness out there, which then makes your subject very dark, even almost silhouetted. And it looks creepy. You can't see their eyes, and it just doesn't work. So make sure that the light is on them. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was going to say that we think cameras are smart, but they're not. If you look on all the advertising blurb on the side of the box or on the website when you go to buy the camera, you think this is the smartest thing in the world, but it's really got a pea-sized brain, and it does lizard thinking. It just does certain things, and if you put someone in front of a bright window, no matter what it says, it's just going to make it look horrible. So get away from that window.
Yeah. And again, audio just is going to be fine on that camera, because I do know that you can buy some small, fairly inexpensive mics that you can plug into your phone to be able to pick up more of that ambient. Are you happy with just the audio you can get off of the built-in mic?
Now, audio is very, very important. If you're in an indoor situation where you don't have air movement, so wind is a killer. You'll get that wind noise, that rumble that goes across the top of the microphone. That'll kill the sound on it. But if you're in a quiet interior environment, generally your microphone will be fine. But it is better to get yourself a small microphone that plugs into a smartphone. But here's what you got to look out for. You got to get a microphone when you look at the little plug, and the little plug is a 3.5 millimeter plug, and the one that you needs to have 3 black bands and 4 silver parts. You have a look. An average one will have 2 black bands and 3 silver parts. You need the one with 3 little black insulating bands and the 4 silver parts on it, and that will work brilliantly for your smartphone. There's a brand called SmartLav, SmartLav. It's not very expensive. It's made for smartphones, works a real treat. And it's just a little thing that you can keep in your pocket, plug it in, clip it to your collar, and it'll work a treat for you.
You're good to go. Where do you find these little black and silver bands when you're looking at the microphone? Is it at the base, the neck of the microphone?
Okay, it's actually on the plug. So, like you got a microphone.
Okay. The actual male end of the plug, as they call it.
Yeah,
so
the male end. And it's a 3.5 millimeter plug, that small plug that you stick into the bottom. Okay, it's your headphone plug. Right. You stick your headphone in, but you've got to have one with a microphone that's got the 4 silver parts, because otherwise it's just not going to work in the smartphone.
Yeah. Well, this is great. Any last thoughts for our listeners to help them get up and running as an influencer and sharing their stories and their wealth of knowledge online, and B, how they could be doing that more with video, because it sure seems like 2016 kicked off as the year of video online, and I can only assume that 17 is going to get stronger. It's just video is going to be where it's at.
Video is the language of the future online, and there's a simple reason for that, Park, is because it's hard to read words on smartphones. Everything is going for smartphones now. When they design new software now, it's all designed for smartphones first, desktop second now. We're going to a handheld medium, and videos are so much easier to consume on a smartphone than reading the words. So it is the language of the future. And here's another way that you can really capitalize on that. It's build yourself an auto cue. And an auto cue is, it goes over the front of the camera, and it's like a two-way mirror. And the camera shoots behind through the mirror, but in front of it, you'll see the words scrolling up in front of you. Now, you can spend anything from a few $100s to many tens of thousands of dollars on these. I'm going to show you how to build one for $10.
But for us Americans, an auto cue is also a teleprompter. That's what we know it
or a
as.
teleprompter,
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, great. You can build one for $10, right? So all you need to do is you need to buy a cardboard box about the size that you could stick a loaf of bread in or something like that. Roughly about that size. And then you need to go down to the 99-cent store and you need to buy a picture frame. Something like you'd put an 8x10 sort of photo in. And you take the piece of glass out of the picture frame. Now, when you buy a professional teleprompter, that piece of glass is probably going to cost you thousands of dollars. 99-cent piece of glass works perfectly well. Used it hundreds of times. And you, with some tape, and I've got a video that I'll direct you to. I'll show you exactly how to make this. You put the piece of glass in a 45-degree angle. You cut a hole in the back of the box. You stick your camera through the back of the box, and then you get your smartphone. And on the smartphone, you go and you get a piece of free software. It's called Promptware, Promptware Plus, and it's by a company called Listec, Listec. It's free. Download that. And then what you do is you write your script that you want to speak, so you don't have to memorize it. And you email that script to yourself. And then you copy and paste your script out of your email. You put it into this little app, this Promptware Plus app, and you hit the go button. And what it does is it reverses your words, because if you look at the mirror, look in the mirror, it reverses everything. So it reverses your words on your smartphone. You put your smartphone down and it reflects on the 45-degree mirror back to you, so you can look at your lens through this 45-degree piece of glass, and you'll see your words that you've written scrolling up in front of you, and you can read off scripts. And so if you have to do any presentations to camera and you're worried about having to memorize them, you don't have to worry anymore, and you can do this for $10.
So that's a total MacGyver thing,
guys, and it's just going to save you hours and a lot of stress.
And you've got a video on this so people can go. Where can we send people to these videos so that they can see how to build their own?
Well, I've just made up a special page for Business of Story listeners. So if you go to julianmather.com, that's JulianMather.com/Business of Story. And there I've got a series of videos, which everything I've been talking about here, it's going to take you through step by step, show you some fast, quick ways that you can use your smartphone to start shooting video. And there's another video on there which is going to show you exactly how to set up one of these teleprompters, these auto cues, for under $10.
That's awesome. So back again, Julian, Julian, Mather, Mather.com/business-of-story.
That's it.
Correct. And we'll have a link in the show notes for that too. That's absolutely fantastic. Julian, any parting words? I mean, this has just been a wealth of information. It's been kind of a two-part show for us, new for Business of Story. Part one is taking us through your background and what you're doing these days. And then part two is really rolling our sleeves up and understanding about video. So what else do you have for us before we close out today's episode?
Oh, gee whiz, Park, I could go off on a 1,000 tangents here.
One tangent. What do you got?
All right.
And let's point it to that 55-year-old person, male or female, that's like, man, I got to get into this in 2017. What do I do next, Julian?
The best thing I could recommend to anyone to do is go to tailormadecareer.com, and there I've got that little prompter that you can download, and you can unlock that knowledge that's in your head. Because again, we just go through life thinking that nobody's interested in what I've got to say. I don't know that much, but again, we've been on this planet for so long, Park. We've got so much information in there. It's just a matter of recognizing it and then putting it into some form that people can consume. And there's, we are going into the digital age, and there's a place for all of us there.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Julian. Your insights and imparting it to our world here at Business of Story is hugely appreciated. We really enjoyed you having on today's show.
It's been a blast.
All right. And thank you all for listening to this edition. Again, you can go to julianmather.com/business- of story and get his tips, his video tips as you are building out your online individual influencer brand, and he'll show you how to do this through video. I know I've got to dive into that big time for 2017. And if it's the story part of it you're trying to get together, visit me please over at businessofstory.com. I've got a ton of tools there waiting for you, and lots of other story artists like Julian that can help you find and tell your stories to help get people involved in what you're about and helping them along in their lives. So thank you for listening to this edition of Business of Story. Join us again next week when we'll have another amazing story artist on. And between now and then, if you like what you're hearing, do me a huge favor. Visit us over in iTunes and let us know what you think of the show, because when you do that and you give us a star rating, it shares it with your world, and that helps expand our Business of Story world, and I appreciate it. So until next Monday, have a wonderful life.
Thanks for tuning in to The Business of Story. Don't forget there are terrific free storytelling resources for you at thebusinessofstory.com, where you'll also find the complete show archive. The Business of Story is sponsored by Emma and by Convince and Convert, and is produced by Convince and Convert Media. Find more great shows like The Business of Story at marketingpodcasts.com, the first search engine for marketing podcasts. Podcast imaging by